Eric Burgess here with Music Marketing TV, and today we're looking at NUGEN Stereoizer 3. It's a stereo shaping plugin that preserves the stereo image so you can do crazy stereo moves without having to worry about how your stuff is going to come across in mono. So let's go ahead and just listen to this little loop I have prepared to demonstrate this plugin. It's a little cinematic thing. So, you get the idea. We got like something's going on, man. So let's go ahead, let's dive right in. So we're greeted with this stereo image view. I'm not sure if this is technically a vector scope or not, but the basics of how this works is the middle right here is mono. And if a signal is perfectly mono, your image will disappear, but a lot of times it will also just show up as just kind of a straight line right here. And then things that are further away are further apart in the stereo field. So we have these two boxes down here that are sort of the core of the plugin. You have the interaural intensity difference and the interaural timing difference. And interaural is just a fancy way of saying the way we hear your ear. And intensity difference just means that when we try to localize sound in a space and say where it's at, one of the things that our brain does is it uses the intensity difference. So if it's louder in one ear than in the other ear, then we'll say the sound is closer to wherever the louder part is. So if it's louder on this ear, then I'd say it's on this side of me. The timing difference is the interaural timing difference, and that just means it comes to one ear before it comes to the other ear. So if something happens and the sound comes, gets to this ear, and then wraps around my head and gets to my other ear, and that's a interaural timing difference. Since it came to this ear first, I will say, oh, it must be on this side of me. And so this plugin sort of leverages these two. The one that really runs amok with phase, or not phase, but just phasing in general, makes your signal sound not so great in mono, is generally the timing difference. But you could turn them on and off by toggling these. So let's turn one off and let's just sort of view them in action. So we have here our visual field, but it's also our frequency. So we see here we have 20 hertz up to 20 kilohertz. So we can adjust this by grabbing this lower part. This is for the intensity difference because it's on this side of the plugin. And also, they've got a really handy little thing that tells you what you're grabbing. And so right now, let's go ahead and let's just play it and hear it. And right now it's at maximum width. So if I want it to be much more narrow as a stereo image, I could do that. Or if I want to make it really wide, I can. I'm going to make it really wide just to make the effects of this plugin very obvious. So here it is. So that's what we get. Now, if we go very mono, or not mono, but just narrow. So you can hear what it's doing. It's quite a nice effect. Very nicely opens up the field. Now, is it really mono compatible? So let's go ahead. Let's do this. Let's turn off the NUGEN stereo shaper and just get a feel for what it is currently. This is technically still stereo. So that was our original image, and I quite like what's happening here. Now let's go ahead and mono it out after the fact and see if it maintains its balance. So it still sounds great, even though it's in mono. So no problems there. Now we have this sort of histogram kind of thing down here that tells you where your levels have been. So brighter regions of this will indicate that, oh, it's been here for longer. And we'll see our balance indicator sort of shift. You can also use this for panning. So if we just want to put out the left, or if we want to put out the right, we could do that. Control click to reset things. And then you can, of course, click the left right to actually solo the individual channels. So pretty nice there, pretty nice. Now let's go ahead and mess with the timing difference. That's the one that's sort of the kicker when it comes to mono compatibility. So we'll do that. And we can, again, adjust the width. So let's just make it really wide. Let's hear it narrow first. So here it is narrow, processing the entire spectrum. Let's go to where the bass is, because that's going to be important. Now let's make it very, very wide. So you can hear it move out to the edges quite a ways. And now let's go ahead and make it mono after the fact and see how it works. Let's go ahead and turn off the plugin and make it mono, and let's compare that. So here it is without the plugin of mono. It's barely a little bit sharper. And if you were to trade, let me turn it back on just so you get a good visual. So one more time. All right, now with it, and this is being monoed after. Super similar. The other one is just a hair bit more clear, in my opinion, just barely. And this is an amazing trade-off, in my opinion, for the clarity you can still maintain. Because and when you listen in stereo, that's a massive benefit. So this is pretty impressive for when they say mono compatible, they are not messing around, they mean it. Now let's go ahead, let's do some of the filtering because this can really help us tighten up the sound as well. So let's go ahead, let's take off the low end there and just have it affect the high ends. High ends are really cool because we perceive these more directionally because they are more easily reflected and absorbed. Uh, so if I have like a hard surface, high frequencies will bounce off it. Well, low frequencies are so big, they just go through things. So high frequencies tend to indicate direction to us and also proximity. Like if I'm close to you and I'm whispering in your ears, there's a lot more high frequencies in my voice if I'm close to you. So we naturally use that as an indicator. It's more reliable than low frequencies. So let's go ahead, let's hear that. Pretty nice. Let's add the low end. That's kind of weird. It sounded like a totally different note there. Let's go back. So you can accomplish a wide variety of images. When I was first messing with this, I was like, whoa, this is so straightforward and incredibly nice because we could do a timing difference. Like we can do the timing difference with the high end and then maybe with the low end, I mean, not the low end, an intensity difference. And we could again leave the low end out, or maybe we want to wrangle this in to be more of the mids. So that's just really cool. Now we could turn them off individually as shown before, or we could hit the link and actually link these two together if that's something that you'd like to do. We also have a linear width, and this is basically I just view it as width in general. So if we bring it all the way down, we get our mono, and if we bring it all the way up, and we have some extra options here. So things can get pretty cool. We can have things actually respond dynamically to what we're doing, and that offers a not static image, which can be awesome if you really want something to gain interest or have a life of its own in your mix, as opposed to just statically sitting it somewhere. So that could be really cool. We could dial it in with a speed and a depth. So let's go, let's change it to a triangle wave. Sure, why not? We'll bring the depth all the way up. And let's bring the speed way down here. And let's process the whole spectrum and just make this like, let's just get crazy with it, you know? Just everything all the way. Now I'll bring the speed way up. So you can hear it pulsing between the in and then out and then in and then out. Which can be really cool. I like it to be a bit more subtle. And you could dial your depth back and get some pretty cool things. And we have our various shapes that we're able to do this with. So that's what we have over there. Let's go ahead and dive into a little bit less extreme settings and look at these extra settings down here. So on the intensity difference side, we have a resolution. And this is, now I don't totally understand what this is. This isn't a common control you see in every plugin. This is sort of unique to the NUGEN Stereoizer 3. And so the intensity differences are being introduced across the spectrum. And the way they're introduced is said to be more smooth with a higher resolution and less smooth. And the best way to do this is to just try it out on your material. But I'm just going to go ahead and put it down to its lowest setting. And let's listen to that. Let's make the intensity difference all the way and turn off the timing difference, just so we can hear it at sort of its max. And so you hear certain frequencies pop out a bit more as far as the stereo image varies more widely through the entire spectrum. And if we bring our resolution all the way up, it'll be more uniform. So let's do that one more time, all the way down. So you hear that mid one especially, very mono. And now we'll bring it all the way up. So that's resolution for you. Definitely one to mess with. You're also able to do a phase invert, and that can be important if you have like material that has transients in it. Here, it's not going to be super duper important because everything is there's a lot of long textures in here. But if you have things running up against drums that are transient sensitive, you can do a quick phase flip and just see if that lines up a bit better with your material. We also have acuity and fill for the time domain over here. So let's turn this guy on. Acuity is basically it's material sensitive from what I understand. But whenever you hear acuity, you think high frequencies. So this is going to refine the sharpness or how clear your high end is. And so this is another one you sort of dial in according to taste and whatever your material is, you just got to dial it in. I don't have like a specific technical thing that this does. So we'll bring it all the way up and we'll get a much sharper image. What I really like is I always kind of like to have a couple knobs that I don't entirely know what they do, but I have a feel for what they do. Like I know this changes the high end and how the high end interacts. And it's very, very musical as far as bringing it all the way up and bringing it down. I'm like, oh, I could see where each effect, if I want to be a little more subdued and mellow, not so bright, I just bring this down. And then if I want it to be bright and sort of crisp and clear, I just bring it up. And having those kinds of controls at my fingertips that are just really easy to grab, it's really nice. We also have a fill, which if we look down here, it says enter time difference fill. And this is going to again change how the material acts across the spectrum. And I believe what they used in the manual was it makes it more dense. So it's another one of those knobs that I'm not 1,000% sure on, but I like the effect that it produces. So let's turn that on and do a quick A/B with that. Let's make this even wider. Now we'll turn it off. So you hear, okay, let me give you a chance to digest that because the effect is quite stark in my opinion. I like it quite a bit. So here it is with it on. Now with it off. So the term dense, I think, is a very fair term to use to express that because you can hear the upper mids and highs, especially, just come through in a different sort of way, a little more clustered, which is they use dense, clustered. Pick your poison. We also have the ability to do an automatic gain compensation deal. We can move the phase around individually, and we can also mono things out. On the automatic gain, you saw that it counts down. This is something that I've actually found when working with this plugin. Changes don't always happen immediately. So, like there it counts down. So you'll actually have to wait for the countdown before it switches to auto. I assume this is to let the buffer fill, or maybe they did this to synchronize something. So just so you're aware. Also, when I've hit mono, it is sometimes I've noticed that when I hit play after hitting mono, it'll start stereo and then very quickly go to mono. Um, like it started mono there. But you see, I clicked it and it took a while for it to jump back down. And this is just something to be aware with this in case you intend to automate these things, which is something that as a creative endeavor, I think these could be really cool. I like to do that, have something start out in a very wide stereo image and then suddenly change to mono for a different maybe a transition element that's enhanced by the mixing moves that I'm doing. But that is the NUGEN Stereoizer 3. If you have any questions about this, let me know. Pretty cool. I should have mentioned fill is not mono compatible. So if you mess with fill, your mono compatibility may go up or down or change, just so you know. It's not guaranteed the same way some of these other things are. Subscribe and have a blessed day.